2020 out there to those here in the West. Here we are again with Pirkei Avos with Rabbi Chaim Coffman. I'm so honored that Rabbi Coffman in Israel is taking the time from Batar Alit to share with us the ethics of the fathers. This is such an important lesson, important read, important class, something we all need to work into our lives, the morals needed, especially starting this new year. I hope that you all have a good one, and more than that, you begin to let the light of Torah shine into your lives. And who better to share with it than Rabbi Coffman? Rabbi Coffman, how are you doing today? It's so good to see you. I hear you got some good stuff. You're going to talk to us about some chesed and a few other things. We're going to get to the morals.
We're going to get to the morals. That's well, you said Pirkei Avos. That's what it is, right? We're going to speak about morals, and you can hear I'm actually got a real voice now, so things are getting better, feeling better, stronger. So it's amazing what happens when you eat, after a few days of starvation. So we're back. Energize the body keeps going. You might be down, might be injured, flat tire, but we're, up and running. Up and running.
Well, we're always glad to hear. I know you still put yourself on a bit of a blistering pace. You've been doing classes like you did one yesterday. I know you're back up doing controversial issues on Tanakh Talk. I see you got a massive amount of views on that. That's exciting. But even the smaller personal classes that you share on social media are just profound. And I hope people take the time to listen in and give you an ear.
Yesterday was actually an easy day. We had, we had a Q&A session. Then I made a Parsha video, which, took me a day and a half to put up because of all, whatever, different things. I just actually finished a class earlier on Shari Tshuva. It's going on my website. I just have to upload it on the Gate of Repentance. And, then we got a Q&A tomorrow. I got a class on Friday. So, 7, 8, 9, whatever it is, classes back to back to back. It's, keeps me alive, or... that's it. Energize the bunny, doesn't stop. So it's good. As long as the material's good, people are happy, we'll keep pumping it out. That's what, that's the goal.
Torah is the way. Let's face it. It's good. It's great. There's lessons for life in it. And, we of the nations of the world, we need to hear it from the learned rabbis in Israel. And we're thankful that you take the time. So, yeah.
All right, so let's get started. We are in Pirkei Avos, chapter 1, Avos Fathers, chapter 1, Mishnah 2, right? See how far we get with Mishnah 2. There's, always quite a bit to speak about. Shimon the righteous. We're going to see why he's called the righteous. He's among the survivors of the Great Assembly. Remember, there's a link in the chain. We had God spoke to Moshe. Right? God gave it over to Moshe. Moshe absorbed everything. He gave it over to Yoshua. He absorbed everything. Got to the elders, Canaan, too much. Right? They couldn't absorb everything, so they had to pass it down in chains. Right? So he was one of the survivors, one of the last of the Great Assembly. And he used to say the world depends on 3 things. What does the world depend on? Torah study, service of God. Well, we'll see if that's exactly what it means. We'll see what avoida actually means. Torah, avoida, gimilus chesed. Right? Torah being Torah study, and avoida either being the sacrificial service, the service of God, or prayer. Right? Because service of the heart, avoida shebelev, right? Avoda meaning the service, but avoda shebelev, the Talmud tells us, is tefillah, is prayer. So the difference of opinion whether it's talking about actual sacrifices or prayer. We'll speak about that. And gimilus chesed, right? Good, kind deeds, right? We'll see. Acts of loving kindness. We'll see.
Beautiful,
we'll see what that represents. Now, when the rabbis before him died, we're talking about Shimon HaTzadik, Shimon the righteous. So he transmitted the Torah. So he was next in line, right, to pass it down to those different links. And just as, informational point, he was the high priest after Ezra, right? So he was the high priest. And eventually the high priesthood, just as a side point, it was only for, obviously, those people that were great, that they were greatest of that generation and part of the, Levitical tribe. Afterwards, people bought it. So why did they bought it? They took it, whatever it was, even though they weren't worthy of it. So I don't know exactly what the thrill is, but once a year, whoever was the high priest on Yom Kippur would go into the Holy of Holies, and what would happen? He'd die. So I guess that's the benefit.
They used to tie a string to his foot, didn't they?
Right, exactly. They pull him out, right? And they have like 2 hoof prints in his face, right? So you know what they say: if the left one doesn't get you, the right one will, and that's it. Boom. So that was it. He, I don't know exactly what the thrill was. At least maybe it was power, prestige, whatever it is. But every single person who took it for power, and they didn't deserve it, died. Right. So we're still talking about when you had high priests that were actually worth something. Now, so the next part of the Mishnah says he used to say.
Right. That's what I wanted to ask. Yes, because that's key.
So why does it say he used to say? Because it means that it was always said. Just because, even though it says he used to say it, it means it's on the tip of his tongue. Right? Just like you would say hello, goodbye, whatever it is, you had something you were going to say, a short speech, whatever, it's there. It's like right on the palm of your hand. So when it says over here, in any time in Pirkei Avos, right, or in the Talmud itself, right, give a little bit of, Talmudic grammar also, not grammar, but, to explain it. When the rabbi would say, he used to say, it means it was something he always said. It was something that was always, it was common for him to say. It was always on the tip of his tongue. That's what it means. Now, it calls him Shimon HaTzadik, right? Shimon the righteous. Normally, if you look through Pirkei Avos, it mentions the rabbi's name. It doesn't give them accolades, normally. Right? It doesn't say the huge one, the small one, the this one, the that one, whatever. Right here it says Shimon the righteous. So question is, why does it say righteous? Why even if he is righteous, right? Why doesn't it mention it? Why does Pirkei Avos mention it? Because the Talmud answers that for one righteous person, even for one righteous person, God said fit to create the world. Because a righteous person lights up the world with Torah. The Torah learning, and the world benefits from his existence. Now, there's another Mishnah. There's another Mishnah in Sanhedrin that says, Bishvili nivra olam. For me, the world was created. In other words, so we learn out that each person's their own world, right? So there's sort of like a funny answer to this. They say, for me, the world was created. For me, not for you, right? The inference is, it's my world. Like, bug off. Like, this is my world, right? So what it means, my world, it means each person's their own world. So a person can't think, oh, I'm just going to mind my own business. I'm not going to do anything. Whatever happens, happens. And that's not true, right? Because every person is their own individual. Like if a person, let's say you have a bunch of people in a rowboat, you can try this, go out to sea, and take one person and take a hacksaw, right? Take a drill. Sorry, even better. Take a drill and start drilling a hole in the boat. Right now, all the other people in the rowboat are going to say, what are you, an idiot? You're drilling a hole in the boat, we're all going to drown. They're like, you do what you want to do, you let me do what I want to do. So yeah, if we let you do what you want to do, we're all going to die. Right? It's not going to help anybody. Right? But, let's just get to the point that when we say that the world's created for me, it means I have a tremendous amount of responsibility. Huge amount of responsibility. Because if I do something wrong, a Jew, right, we'll make it clear. If I do something wrong, as a Jew, and then someone says, hey, why did you do that? That's against the Torah. You stole, you misled, you whatever. And then people are going to say, oh, all Jews are thieves. All Jews mislead. All Jews misrepresent. You don't see that by Italians. You say, hey, why'd that guy do that? We're gonna destroy all Italians. No one does that. You don't do that with the Serbs. You don't do it with Croats. You don't do it with Koreans. You don't do it with any of these ethnic groups, right? In North America or anywhere,
Right.
right? It's only by Jews. So you're going to say why should Jews be singled out? Because when Hitler, may his name be blotted out, may he rot. When he wanted to kill Jews, he didn't care who they were. He didn't care if they had a quarter of blood that was Jewish, half blood, father was Jewish. They had some blood, you were dead, right? That's it. Because everyone, there's a Talmudic statement that says, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zen Lezeh. Every Jew is responsible one for the other. Doesn't say we're responsible for the nations. Doesn't say the nations are responsible for the nations. It says Jews are responsible for each other. So that means even if a secular Jew and he doesn't care and he spits in God's face, he's going to say, come on, Hitler, I'm like you. I went to your gymnasiums. I went to your schools. I served in your army. I even watched your Olympics. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You're a Jew. You're all gathered together. Right? Whether you do good things, you do bad things. Right? Irrelevant. So you take somebody who's righteous. He's going to light up the world. Right? He's going to do the right thing. Right? Through his Torah learning, everybody benefits. Now, there's an expression. There are righteous people that are good for the world, and there are righteous people not good for the world. Right? You're going to ask, how can it be somebody who's righteous, who God would consider righteous, how is he bad for the world? Right? Why would he be bad for the world? He's bad for the world because people do not benefit from his learning. He keeps to himself. He does his own thing. Right? He serves God at a high level, no question. But seemingly he's doing it on his own. Right? He's not helping others per se. He's keeping it to himself. Now, we'll give an example of this. You see by Noah in the flood that he was able to save his children through his own merits. The only people who survived the flood were Noah and his family. Now, if a righteous person, now by Noah, it says that Noah was righteous in his generations. So why does it use the plural in his generations? It's either to teach you, had Noah been in a generation like Abraham, he would have been even greater. Or you look at him as only being great in his own generation. In other words, who are we comparing him to? Right? He's living in Sin City. He's living in Las Vegas. Everyone a bunch of scumbags doing all kinds of stuff in Las Vegas. And he's not doing that. So he's righteous. Ooh, that's impressive. He's righteous for Las Vegas. Big deal. Doesn't mean he's not holding somewhere. But compared to everyone else, if you'd be living in in some other place where there are a bunch of righteous Jews, it wouldn't be considered so great, right? So the whole question, how great Noah was. Now, no one benefited from him, right? That's the problem, right? What was Noah doing, right? Noah's building an ark for 120 years. He built an ark for 120 years. Now imagine, it's a long time. People come up to him all the time. Hey, Noah, what are you doing? I got to hear Bill Cosby on this. I don't even want to, mention his name after everything he went through, but he's very funny. When he's like, hey, Noah, what are you doing? It's like, I'm building an ark. And, they say, why are you building an ark? So, it's going to be a big flood. They look up. San Diego weather, 75 and sunny. No rain. They're like, come on. They're like, what, do you think there's going to be a flood? They say, okay, he'll die. How long can you tread water for? Right? How long are you going to tread water for? What did he do? He didn't run after them. He didn't say, no, you have to understand. God's really mad. He came to me. He's told me a number of times, I'm going to bring this flood. He didn't do that. He didn't try. He built the ark for 120 years, and this was what happened. And he didn't go out to save other people. That's how we know he wasn't as great as Abraham. Abraham went to save the world, right? He brought people close, converted the men, Sarah converted the women, brought absolute monotheism to the world. But how do we know? How do we know that Noah wasn't as great and that he had to learn chesed? We'll speak about chesed. How did we know he had to learn chesed? Because Talmud tells us, what was Noah busy doing while he was in the ark? Noah is busy feeding the animals. The entire time he's running, feeding tens of thousands of animals. And once he came to feed the lion, a little bit late, he got smacked, became lame. Then he was called Noah the Lame, Talmud tells us. Right? But why did God have to put him in the ark? And why did he have to do that? Because he didn't do chesed with his generation. If he was involved in Jewish outreach, they would have fired him within 2 weeks. They said, Noah, who'd you make from? Who'd you bring back to Torah? He's like, well, I told them there was going to be a flood. I told them it's going to rain. They're going to have to come in. He said, what can I do? They didn't listen. Abraham went after these people, convincing them, arguments, law of the, world of design. He was the ultimate ish chesed. Noah had to learn chesed. Not only that, the Torah says that God had to push him in. They had to push him in as it started to rain. Everyone had, so they say that Noah was mekat the emunah. He didn't have proper faith. He was lacking in faith. So they say, what do you mean? He's the only one saved in the entire generation. And he saved his family. What do you mean he lacked emunah? How did he lack having faith that God was going to bring the flood? Right? That was the question. So the answer is God has different attributes. Right? God, the 13 attributes of God. Hashem, Hashem, Kil, Rachum, V'chanu. Right? Yeah. Hashem, God before the sin, God after a person sins. Hashem, God of compassion. Right? He's got compassion, but there's also God of Elohim. What's the word Elohim mean? Judgment. Right? God wanted to start the world and create the world with only judgment. And what happened? He saw no one could stand up to it. Very few people. Rabbi Akiva, Yaakov Avinu. There are few people who wanted to live at that level. And you see how much they suffered. Right? So what happened? So what are you telling me? Noah didn't have faith? No. Noah understood. If God's going to destroy it, he'll destroy it. But he thought his character traits of compassion would overcome his character trait of judgment. Right. And that was the mistake. That's why it said he was of little faith, because he made a mistake in where, what aspect of God's attributes were going to take over one for the other. Right? So you look at somebody like Noah and what he did, and he wasn't running after people, and he had to learn chesed. He's still considered a tzaddik, right? He's still considered righteous. Noah each tzaddik tamim. He's considered a righteous dude. He's considered righteous, right? He's righteous.
But you're saying, Rabbi, you're saying that there was maybe an altruistic flaw there in Noah's life, that he kind of erred in the sense that he says, Hashem will be merciful. Now, didn't even the prophet Jonah say, he didn't want to go because he knew God was going to forgive him anyways?
No, Jonah's different. Jonah said that imagine the scenario that he goes to the people of Nineveh, non-Jews, idolaters, whatever. Goes to Nineveh, and he says, listen, I am saying in the name of God, you don't repent. He's wiping this place out. Who's the king of Nineveh? Pharaoh. He survived Egypt, and he got demoted to Pago. He was the head of the most powerful nation in the history of man at that time. And because his country got decimated, he survived. Right? He survived and became the king of Nineveh. Right? So imagine, he's the president of the U.S. He gets impeached, and where does he go? He goes to Guam. He becomes the head of Guam. It's like, wow, what a demotion. He got sent to Guam. Pharaoh got sent to Guam. But he understood if Jonah says in the name of God this is going to happen, he's like, I'm not going to mess with him again. I already learned my lesson. Now, what happens if non-Jews repent and Jews don't? That's really bad. That is really bad. In other words, if we don't, the prophet Isaiah at the beginning says that the horse and the ox know their master, but the Jews don't. Right? It was a knock against them that the animals know better and Jews don't, because they're not going in the right way. Now, if non-Jews, no offense, go in the right way and they do tshuva, what does it say about us? It says we're pretty bad if we don't do tshuva. So Jonah says, I'm not going. That's why he doesn't want to go, because the Jewish people are going to look bad, because they're going to do tshuva. Right? The non-Jews are going to do tshuva, they're going to make us look bad. That's why I didn't want to go. That was the reason I didn't want to go.
But you're saying that Noah had an altruistic outlook in the sense that he thought Hashem would be merciful. At some point, he wouldn't go into the ark. There was a hesitation.
He thought that there are different attributes of God: God of justice, right? The God of mercy, and he made the mistake thinking that the attribute of mercy would win over. But God told him, this is what I'm going to do. Still, he thought that attribute would win out. And he made a mistake. So we see here by Noah as a righteous person who was only good for himself and his family. He didn't save anybody else. We see just the opposite by Moshe Rabbeinu. By Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, Exodus chapter 2, verse 2. Torah tells us, the woman conceived, she gave birth to a son. She saw that it was good. He was good because he filled up the house with light, Rashi says. And she hid him for 3 months. Now, why? Now, one of the reasons, Rashi says, why is he considered good? He brought out a different light, spiritual light, even as a baby. But we say over here that why is he considered good? Another reason, he went to save the Jewish people in Egypt. That was what he was supposed to do. So his essence was considered good, and he's called a good, righteous person. So you see, just the opposite. His purpose and what he was supposed to do was good, because he went to help others. Noah built the ark and said, okay, he'll die. How long can you tread water for? He'll die. He didn't run after them. He didn't try and get them to do tshuva. And they made fun of him. So he said, okay, fine. You're all going to die. This went on for 120 years. Right? Very hard to understand. Mm-hmm. That's why I had to learn chesed. He didn't do chesed with his own generation. So when you talk about one righteous individual, and the power of one righteous individual, says Rav Yoel Teitelbaum, the Satmar Rav, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may his name be blessed. He asks on the verse, Genesis chapter 18, verse 32. He said there's a discussion between God and Abraham about the city of Sodom, trying to save the city of Sodom. So Abraham says, let not my Lord be annoyed. I will speak about this once. What if 10 could be found there? And God says, I will not destroy an account of 10. Now, the whole question, I'm not going to get into. I have a video on it, on that parsha. Why is Abraham trying to find 10 righteous people in Sodom? The people of Sodom are cruel, they're vicious, they deserve to die. Avram understands they deserve to die. Right? So the whole question, what in the world was he thinking, even to find righteous people? Quote unquote righteous people. In any case, says the Satmar Rav, we said before, you only need one righteous person. The world can be sustained by one righteous person. Why is Abraham asking for 10? Where did 10 come from? Ask for 1. Comes on the Satmar Rebbe. Unbelievable. Satmar Rebbe says, who are these righteous people? These righteous people were Sodomites. Sodomites. I don't even know what you call them. Right? They were Sodomites. Righteous people. They were righteous compared to their surroundings.
Right. Relative.
Right? Las Vegas, righteous people. Okay. Very good. Right? Therefore, 10 righteous people were needed to save the city. But the reality is, all you needed was 1. Right? 1 righteous person would have been enough. But when you're comparing people in general, you want to see where someone's holding or whatever. You have to see what surroundings are. Right? We say, I sort of make fun, but says in Psalms, King David says in chapter 34, we talk about not speaking Lashon Hara, speaking badly against others. He says, verse 13, chapter 34, verse 13, who's the man who desires life, who loves days of seeing good, guard your tongue from evil, right? That's the thing about Lashon Hara. Your lips from speaking deceit, turn from evil and do good, seek peace and pursue it. Right? So I always say, verse 14, verse 13, one second. Sorry, verse 15. It says, turn from evil and do good. So I would say tongue in cheek. Turn from evil, that's this generation. If you turn away from evil, you're good. You're already better than 95% of the world. Now, what does the rest of the verse say? The rest of the verse says, do good. Do good, that's extra. That's already a stringency. If you stay away from, again, my explanation. If you stay away from evil, 95%, I will tell you 97% of the world you're doing better than. Just to stay away from doing bad things. You want to do good also? That's a stringency. That's a bonus. That's a bonus. That's a bonus.
I see. That makes more sense compared to, like you were saying about Noah going at it for 20 years, but not actually reaching his generation, just his family.
Right. He's not reaching anybody. Right. He's not reaching anybody because he doesn't care. Seemingly he doesn't care. Now, it's hard to understand. Noah is one of the greatest people ever created. It's hard to understand a lot of these stories in Genesis at face value. You can imagine who these people were. You gotta say, what? Hey, Noah, I'm building an ark. Hey, what? Okay, you'll die. Okay, so we're making a little bit of fun. But in the end, you have to understand who he is. You have to understand what's going on. And that the generation was so bad, he could have turned people around. Listen, heck, Yaakov Avinu was taking a task that when he met Esav, he put Dinah in a box. Rashi says, because he put her in a box so Esav wouldn't see her. So he wouldn't desire to marry her. Right? I think I say what? Yaakov would have married. He would have had an obligation to marry Dinah to Esav, one of the most unscrupulous people in the history of man. So one of the claims is that she would have had more of an influence on him than he on her. Right? In other words, she came from Yaakov Avinu. She came from good stock. Because she came from good stock and her ruchnius, her spirituality was so strong, he should have given her the opportunity. Now, most people would say that's crazy. Because someone who's that bad, he'll probably have a more of an influence than she'll have on him. Right? Most likely. That's what we'd say. But how can that be a claim? Because Yaakov didn't give her the chance. She understood who she was. She didn't have any issues. She wasn't going to be swayed. And even if she wasn't going to be swayed, she could have had an effect. And because he didn't allow her to have an effect, she got taken by Shem. You have to understand what's going on. These stories are mind-boggling. It's simple explanation. You look at these things, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You want to say, okay, she wanted to see the world, and this is what happened to her. What? She was in a secular, an insular environment, right? She was raised by, Yaakov, and the righteous people around her, and all of a sudden, like she goes out to Hollywood. She goes out to see the world, and look what happened. And she gets taken advantage of by Shem, right? By Hamor, or by Shem. In any case, you can't look at that at face value either. Right? You're gonna think, what? Because she wanted to go out and she wasn't careful. Look what her pedigree is. Right? So they say, when you learn Genesis, it's either a simple explanation or it's Kabbalah. There's nothing in between, because there's so many other things going on, and the Jewish people are being built, and Yaakov has to marry two sisters, even though you're not allowed to marry two sisters, certainly as a Jew, and then Rachel dies, and there are all these different things going on that that are absolutely mind-boggling. You have the story of Lot and his daughters, and that's where the Messiah comes from. Makes no sense logically. A lot of this. Anyway, I digress. But in this case, back to
good stuff. Even though you digress, there's some good stuff in there.
there's you got one righteous person. One righteous person can save the city, right? But in this case, you needed 10. Satmar Rebbe says you need 10, right? That was the answer. All right, let's go a little bit further, right? The second thing, what does the world depend on? Torah. Depends on Torah. So, Prophet Jeremiah tells us, chapter 33, verse 25, thus says Hashem, he says, if my covenant with the night and with the day would not be, had I not set up the laws of heaven and earth. What covenant? What's the covenant Jeremiah is talking about? Torah. In other words, if the Jews wouldn't have made a covenant to accept the Torah, what would happen? The world ceases to exist. Go back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. Chaos. It's the back of that Led Zeppelin album. Right? Anyone who remembers the back of that album, you know what I'm talking about. If you go back to chaos, you wouldn't be listening to me. We'd all be dead. You'd probably have a better time not listening to me. Any case, that's the power of Torah. Right? The Torah says by the 6th day. Right? We'll go back to the beginning of Genesis. Not going to go back to Led Zeppelin. We'll go back to Genesis. Genesis, by the 5th day, 6th day, sorry.
29.
1 second. Yeah, chapter 1, verse 31. God saw that he made, behold, it was very good. It was evening, there was morning, the 6th day. Every other day, 5th day, 4th day, 3rd day. Why does it say the? Why is there an extra hey? Right? So Rashi says, because all the world was in flux, waiting for, God had to wait and understand, I mean, not understand, but God wanted someone to accept the Torah. If he didn't accept the Torah, the world's not going to be solidified. So what does the Hey stand for? Hey Sivan. The month of Sivan. What does Sivan represent? Giving of the Torah. If you don't have the giving of the Torah, you don't have the world. You don't have creation. Right? Everything revolves around us. The Jewish people. So the Jewish people, mentioned in my Q&A yesterday, been scattered around the world, been holocausts, pogroms, assimilation, totally decimating us. What's the only thing that kept them together? The laws of Torah. And we see that the further a person strays away, the more likely they're going to assimilate. Now, this is a mind-boggling story. This is going to make your hair stand on end. This is an unbelievable story. There's a story with an Arab terrorist. He's not a Rhodes Scholar. Dan, I'm telling you, he's not a Rhodes Scholar. He's a terrorist. He's in jail. And he sees his Israeli jailer eating a pita sandwich. He's eating a pita, right? He's eating a sandwich. So says the Arab terrorist, again, he's not a Rhodes Scholar. Hey, it says according to your Torah, today's the holiday of Passover. Why are you eating a pita sandwich? Doesn't it say here you're not allowed to eat any unleavened product? Imagine getting rebuke from an Arab terrorist. The worst. And he's telling you, he says, you're going to fry because you're eating a pita sandwich on Passover. Now, listen to what this Israeli jailer says. The secular Israeli jailer says, what are you talking about? That was thousands of years ago. We're the new Israel. We're the Israeli. We don't need to keep all these archaic laws. That happened thousands of years ago. So what did the Arabs say? The Arabs said that, and he's in jail for a long time, right? And what is the conclusion that he makes? The conclusion that he makes is a person that has no connection to his history. Again, this is crucial. Let me repeat that. A person that has no connection to his history, it's only a matter of time before they give us all the land back. That gave him and others the ability to want to keep fighting, because as long as the Jews in Israel do not have a connection to the land, there's no way that eventually they're just going to give it to us.
Yeah, and let's face it, after 2,000 years, I mean, there must have been just some wonderful people that it just burned in their heart for Israel, to get back to the land and that connection.
Sure. And the Satmar Rebbe we mentioned, Rabbi Teitelbaum, said that after the 6-Day War, the biggest right-wing hawks, Ariel Sharon included, that got the Kotel back, got the Western Wall back in Jewish hands, he says they're going to be the first ones to give it back. They're going to be the first ones to give it back. And he was right. Why? Because when it comes to politics, things change. Why?
Yes.
Who knows? Things change. And as everyone knows, anyone ever read, I forget what the name of his autobiography is, that I read Sharon's autobiography many years ago, right? He was a tremendous war hawk. He helped bring tens of thousands of people to Judea and Samaria to settle there. They put him, when he was in a bunch of governments, they put him in housing ministry, so keep him quiet. So he built Judea and Samaria. He just sent thousands of people there, and he was the one, right, to give up Gush Katif, to the Arabs. He sold them out. Right, so the Satmar Rebbe understood.
Wow.
It's only a matter of time.
And this is all in our lives.
This is not right. This is not make-believe. This is right. This happened. This is exactly what happened. So, listen, Ehud Barak wanted, I don't like to get into Israeli politics, but just mention that he offered Arafat 95% of the West Bank. And the idiots, Baruch Hashem, didn't take it. 95%. You know how indefensible that is? That's the heart of the country on 5 different levels, 5 different areas. It's indefensible.
And they didn't take it.
You look at a map, it's so easy for them to take over if they have that land. Easy. In different areas. So regardless of that, one other story, is I know somebody that his kid's intermarried, and he always complains about going to their house and seeing this tree and all this. He said, it really bothers me. So he said, I gave them such Jewish values. He said, I guess, they didn't take the values. So I said, but you have to think about it. Judaism without Torah is like the body without a soul.
Right. And what is the body without a soul?
and you want to pass down Torah with a bunch of songs. Sorry, you want to pass down Judaism, a little bit of Jewish education. Come to synagogue once or twice a year. Sing a few, Zionistic songs, eat a few latkes, and that's it. So I said, how in the world do you think, you could pass down a feeling without something real? Without the meat and potatoes. The guy looks at me and he says, I guess you're right. You can't pass down a feeling. All right, whatever. Can I have another piece of pizza? Like, that was it. So the purpose of Torah is to purify the soul, is to give it life. Just like you need food to sustain the body, you need mitzvahs to nourish the soul. Right? The soul is insatiable.
Yes.
The Jewish soul is insatiable. What happens? What's the worst day of the week for a secular Jew? The worst day of the week for a secular Jew is Shabbos. Why? Because when Shabbos comes, Shabbos is a 27-hour spiritual event. Doesn't matter how much you sleep or whatever, right? It's about going to synagogue, it's about learning Torah, it's about having your family together, eating meals, singing songs, right? Words of Torah, all these things.
Recharging.
Yeah. Now what happens as a secular Jew? You don't have that. Going to the mall, gonna go kill time. Someone once told me, they said, Rabbi, how can I ever keep Shabbos? They're Jewish. So how can I ever keep Shabbos? I pay my bills and I do my errands. That's when I have time to do my errands. So I said, you know what? I have a novel idea. Why don't you spread it out during the week and then you won't have to do it on Shabbos? And they're like, wow, that's why you're the rabbi. I said, that's why. I got the brains. I was like, just spread it out over time. You don't have to do it on Shabbos. Right? So you need spiritual side. And if you don't have the spiritual side on Shabbos, it kills you. You find things to do. That's what people do. They go out Friday night, they go out, whatever, they'll sleep a little bit later, they'll find things to kill the day.
In a dead sense.
In a dead sense. Right? That's it. Because the spiritual side is so strong and it's thirsting. It's like, give me something. How many ball games can you watch? How many movies can you see? It drives them nuts. Right? So the Torah tells us, Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 4. Torah says, you cling to Hashem your God, you are alive today. Now, what does that mean? Someone who throws off the yoke of heaven, the yoke of Torah, are you alive? No. Technically you are. Right? But if you throw off the yoke of Torah and the yoke of heaven, that means I'm just living like an animal. That means I'm just going according to my base desires. That means I have no spirituality. That means I'm as good as dead. I'm just lacking burial. Right? So what that means is the person lives an ownerless life. They do what their desires tell us. And we're going to see in Pirkei Avos, who's the one that's truly free is the one who learns Torah. Right? But then you have to ask, but I have all these restrictions. Why is it called freedom? We'll see. Right? We'll see. But if a person only goes according to their base desires, you're dead. You're an animal. That's only one aspect of the soul. But if you're only going according to that one aspect, you're no different than an animal. You talk, you make decisions, you do other things. So there's a major difference when you look at Torah and you look at other wisdom. Right? There is other wisdom of the nations. That's true. Right? What's the purpose of Torah? Purpose of Torah is to make a person perfect. To make them better. In God's eyes.
Whole.
Right. Now there's a mistake people make that the Torah says we're God's chosen people. Well, we are, because God chose us, we chose him. None of the other nations wanted the Torah. Now, when we say we're God's chosen people, what does that mean? That means, hey, well, all you non-Jews watching, I'm better. Nah, 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 nah. Like, okay, now start throwing tomatoes. That's not what it means. What it means is the Torah has the ability to change me if I use it properly.
If you use it properly.
It doesn't say, we're better because I belong to this Jewish pedigree club. Doesn't mean that. If a Jew acts like an animal, then they act no better than a non-Jew. Right? So if they act in that way, does that make them better? No. A Jew who acts more like a non-Jew is worse. It's 10 times worse because he's got that aspect of the soul that should, have him keeping Torah mitzvahs, right? Making him into a better person, a more whole, complete person who wants to change, who wants to grow, who wants to attach himself to God. That's the goal. But if you don't,
very clear.
Out. You're out. You have to do tshuva, you have to repent, you have to work hard. But that's what makes us different. And if we don't keep up our end of the bargain, we have no uniqueness. We're not any different. We totally lose our uniqueness in the world. Now, another thing, in this aspect, that everyone's got an evil inclination. Right. I just said, I gave a class earlier this morning on duties of the heart. And at the end, he was speaking about how hard it is to fight the evil inclination. Now, everyone's got an evil inclination. And he was saying how absolutely absorbing it is in the soul. And in every aspect of what we do, the evil inclination, imagine playing tennis. You throw up a lob, he slams it. You hit it down the alley, he hits a drop shot. You run up, you try and slam again. It's back and forth, adversary, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So he doesn't stop. The evil inclination doesn't go away. Right? So when you look at what he writes, you say, I'm dead. There is no possible way. There's no possible way for anyone, right, for any Jew to fight against evil inclination. It's too much of a part of us. It's always coming up with new ideas to trap us. All these different things, and never stops. Comes on the Talmud and says that God created the evil inclination to test us. God gave us an antidote, or as I would say, an antidote, right? An antidote. What's the antidote? Torah. Torah is the only thing in the world that has the ability to overcome the evil inclination.
Amen.
Nothing else can do that. But then the Talmud goes one step further. Talmud says, even with all that, you need God's help. If you don't have God's help, you're never going to overcome it, even with all the Torah. It goes hand in hand, right? So Torah has the ability. It has the ability to change us. I mentioned my video on the Parsha. Give a little bit of a preview where my Rebbe's Rebbe, Moshe Schneider, would say that I don't want to make students. I'm not interested in people studying Torah like
academics.
Mathematics, academics, right? Doing mental gymnastics. It is interesting, right? Learning sharpens the mind, no question, right? It certainly makes us sharper. But in the end, the whole point of Torah is to change us. And Moshe Schneider said, where all the hatzlacha, where all the success is going to come from? It's not just coming from learning. You got to pray every day, and you got to come on time. And if you don't, he told a story about somebody that was so great in learning, but he didn't come to pray. And he said the whole Pesach, the whole opening, the whole opening to success and learning is the gateway of prayer. And he said, if this guy, as bright as he is not going to come to synagogue, right? He's not going to come to the yeshiva to pray or whatever. He's a student. He's not a bachur yeshiva. He's not a student of the yeshiva. He's a student. He's an academic.
You know, Rabbi, we see so many of them here in the West now. I mean, all academia has become quite big business here in the United States and Canada.
Right.
And it's a money mill in a lot of respects. And you get a lot of people with degrees that have no life skills. We see it more and more every day. And more than that, they're $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 in debt.
Well, that's me. I got a degree in history. That's pretty useless.
Now, didn't you go to Columbia University?
I did, yes.
I have studied their geologic department, and their just wonderful material out of there. But we see that you're alive with the Torah. So, the way I was taught this Mishnah, really that Shimon, the Zadok, he was of the remnants of the great assembly. And he used to say, on three things the world stands: on Torah, which you're really explaining. Then he said, on service of God and on deeds of kindness. Now, I know that you're going to get into the Hesed, which has to do with the deeds of kindness.
Right.
But can you, for our Noahide listeners, can you elaborate maybe on how, I think you're painting a picture of how we need to be more than just studying Torah as a don't be just a student. It's got to be alive. But how can we translate this into service as B'nai Noach? Like service of God.
So
is it something?
So what do we say? What do we say every day? We pray every day. We say before the Shema, paragraph before the Shema, we say, Lilmod lamed lishmor v'lasos. I got to learn. Lilmod lamed to teach. Lishmor to guard. Lasos to do. Now what some B'nai Noach would say was, so let me do a lot. Let me do more. Right? That there is a lot to do. Right? So someone's going to ask, okay, if I can't learn Talmud per se, right? So what can I do? It's all of Tanakh. You can have me 3 times a week. We can go through Tanakh. We can go through Jewish history. We can go through laws that apply. You get on, there's so much chesed a person can do. Help others, work in a food kitchen. Who knows? They're raise money for my school in Yavnei. That'd be a great thing. Get it off the ground. Come to Israel. Have retreats. I got big plans. Have people come up north.
Beautiful dream. Beautiful goal. Yeah.
Be absolutely beautiful. Have classes around the clock. Have non-Jews come. Have people want to convert come. Tremendous things. Anyone want to set up a committee? I'm ready to speak. I'm ready to take the help. Anyone who's interested. You have to. A person has to want to. The problem is a lot of people are scattered. Right. Everyone's all over the place. Right. If each person, if each place had something going on in their own city, it'd be different. Okay, but there isn't. Right. So you have to do a lot of things virtually. Listen, I'm giving 7, 8, 9 classes a week. I can do more, I'll do more. Right? That's what it is. But you have to set time to learn. How are you going to get into things if you're just going to sit back and say, oh, I'm just going to keep the Noahide laws. Right? You have to put your best foot forward. I made a statement yesterday, in my Q&A that, a lot of times I'll get questions, and people ask me, how do I get fear of God? Well, the whole chapter in the book, The Ways of the Righteous. Read it. No, but just give me the highlights. Don't be lazy. People are lazy.
And getting lazier every day, it seems, in some respects. We have a thirst for technology to make it simpler. I ask myself, do we just want to use technology to ingest more? But if we can't decipher it and digest it, What's the purpose, right? You know,
That's why
sometimes
people
overload.
that's why people set up learning groups. People set up online groups. They do things to give themselves strength because they don't have people around them. Can't go anywhere. So you have to do it virtually. What about a person's own learning? Right? There's people say like, yeah, I really like to get into things. Go on to artscroll.com. You know how many books there are? There are thousands. There are thousands of books of about Emunah, and about prayer, and about all kinds of things that a person can get inspired by. There are plenty. Listen, I got 70, 80, 100 videos on YouTube. You guys can go crazy. All right, watch another one, watch another one, watch another one. You got to put the effort in. You have to look out there and see what Torah is out there. What Torah is out there for you. Plenty of books in English to go through. I don't think there's any question. I gave 29 classes in the book Duties of the Heart on Shar B'Tachon, on the gate of faith of God. That is an unbelievable book, Duties of the Heart, which I'm working through. But that is all talking about livelihood and how it relates to my life. You go through that. You go through something like that, a person's going through a hard time. I'll give one example. Someone's going through a very difficult time, let's say with livelihood. So the Chovos Chavavos says over and over and over, realize you have to put your best foot forward. Right now, you think you're going to do something and say, oh, this isn't working, I'll try this. This isn't working, I'll try that. This isn't working, whatever. Oh, now it is working, this, that. It's not dependent on you. In other words, you're going to put your best foot forward, and God's going to do the rest. And how do I know God's going to do the rest? Because there are people who put in minimal effort, and God, and do something stupid. God gives them a lot. There are people who put in maximum effort, and God gives them a little. Right? And it doesn't work out. And they could have a 220 IQ. They could have a degree in history from Columbia University. Woo! Right? They could have they could be out there and say, oh, it's only making $8 an hour. Like, come on. Don't you have anything better to do? So, right? So in the end, it's either one of two things. It's either God's going to bless what you do, or it doesn't matter whatsoever what you do. If God doesn't want to bless it, it's not going to happen. Give an example. Imagine the guy who invented toothpick umbrellas to put in cocktail drinks. Guy made a mint. Now you're my age. You remember the pet rock? You remember the pet rock?
The mood ring.
So a pet rock, unbelievable thing. You don't have to feed it. You don't have to walk it. You don't have to do anything. And guess what? Guy made a mint.
Yeah. Keep on trucking bumper stickers.
Yeah. Also, whatever. Rubik's Cube, spinners, all these crazy things. Right? There are plenty of things that did make money. Right? But, at the end of the day, it's our mentality that has to change. So you're going to say, oh, what can I do? I guarantee there are people out there. Some have it easier. Some have it harder. I guarantee that, a person takes this to heart. You see, the Chovos Chavavos says that anybody that has proper faith in God, nothing bothers them.
Ooh, nothing bothers them.
Nothing bothers them. You know why? Now, obviously, we're not there, and not too many people are. But why doesn't anything bother them? Because they understand it's a sign from God. They understand God's the one in charge, and God's knocking him around, right? And God's doing all these things. There are two people, students of the Rebbe. You got Rabbi Akiva and his Rebbe Nachum Ish Gamzu. What did Rabbi Akiva say? Rabbi Akiva said his motto was, Kol da'avid rachmanu l'toiv avid. Everything that God does is good. It's a very high level. Comes along Nachum Ish Gamzu. Nachamish Gamzu, his Rebbe said Gamzu L'Toiva. He said everything is good. And he was a paraplegic with boils all over his body, suffered tremendously, and he lived his life with a smile on his face every day. That's it's a whole different mentality. So you're gonna say, Rabbi, come on. No, nobody's holding there. What's the point? You're giving over this thing, this high level. No one's even gonna reach it. We're not close, I agree. But isn't it true? If someone, God forbid, went through a red light, they didn't stop at a red light, smash into your car, do all kinds of damage, maybe even cause you physical damage. Says the Chovos Levavos, you know what? You deserved it. That person is just the messenger. It's kind of like a person hits a dog with a stick. Who does the dog go after? The stick. But who's wielding the stick? So now you're upset. You're in pain. Your car's totaled. How much, the insurance is going to cover. All these different things. And comes along the Chovos Levavos and says, you thank God from where it came from. He's just the messenger. You got a problem, you go to the one who controls him. You go to the one that sent him. Isn't that the true mentality? That's the true mentality. And what are we doing? We're screaming at someone for a parking space? Someone cut us off. Someone said something to us. They're the stick. God's sending you a message. So why aren't you getting the message? Because you're not living your life the way you need to. So now, Dan the man just asked the $1 million question. How can we think about these things? How can we get into these things? I just gave you 3 different examples that are mind-changing examples if a person wants to live it. If a person doesn't want to live it, okay. Right? But if you're in it and you understand what it's about, in theory, when you get thrown to the wolves and your car gets smashed, you say, okay, it's sticks and stones. God sent me a message. I was supposed to lose this money. And you're whistling Dixie, okay, got to get it fixed. Got to get healthier, this, that. But that's the mentality. I'll tell you a personal story since I'm over time anyway. Right? So I'll tell you a personal story that happened to me. I guess that's why it's personal. Any case, I had money and I had someone steal it. Right?
Actually, robbery?
He was running a fund. He had a fund that people gave him a lot of money. It wasn't just my money, it's other people's money. And he put it into something else. He wasn't allowed to take it out. He had his own business. And he put it in, his own business failed. Right? And the money went. Now, this happened in 2003. So the story doesn't end. I'm not going to the end of the story because I'm not going to put my dirty trash out there. But in general, because no one would ever believe it anyway, you'd be actually kissing my bootstraps if you ever heard the end of the story. Because I should make a movie out of it because no one would ever believe it. But in any case, throughout the entire time, and I had my own colo, and I was helping other people, right? And I was supporting a lot of people, and all this. And someone had asked my wife, they said, do you have any regret all the people that you helped over the years? I said, of course I don't have regret. Why would I have regret? I get the mitzvah. I supported a kol for 3 years, my own. I got the mitzvah. I helped others. If I didn't have the money, I wouldn't have got the mitzvah for that. But throughout all that time, the test was, and pretty much still is, that when you had it and you used it for the right thing and you did the right thing, and at the beginning when you were building and doing all these good things, it got taken away. It got ripped right underneath you right at the beginning. There could have been a lot of bitterness. I think over the last 15 years or more, I can probably count on one hand, where, give a kvetch here, a kvetch there. or whatever, right? Can't cry over spilt milk, right? But at the end of the day, what was the test? What do I think the test was? That the test was, okay, you had it. It was easy to pay bills. It was easy to help others in different ways. And now you're on the other side. Now that you're on the other side, are you going to blaspheme against God or not? Are you going to kick him? Are you going to kick him in the head and say all the things that he gave me before wasn't worth it? And this was cruel. Now, why do I put it in those terms? Because it's brought down if a person's ungrateful. If a person's ungrateful, what happens? They make that statement, they lose everything they did up until that point. You lose all your mitzvahs. So I didn't have any complaints. Because you don't spit at the hand that feeds you.
No, of course not.
If he's been feeding you for good, for years, and things have been good, I mean, I had other difficulties, but not that. So if things are good, how in the world can you spit at that point? Now, I'm not saying it was an easy trial to go through, right? Certain aspects of it I'm still going through. Doesn't matter. Trial is like this trial never ends. But, so now you're going to say, okay, that's a major trauma, right? That's a major thing you went through, 100%. So then the $1 million question is, how in the world did you survive it? I have family, that's money. So how'd you survive it? It was hard. But you know what? When I was becoming religious and I was becoming stronger, I spent my nights going through things, catching up. Getting other knowledge people already had. Right? Going through Chumash. Going through the Bible, commentaries. Learning from Hashkafa Sfarim. Learning from books that speak about Emunah. About belief in God. Derech Hashem, the way of God. Of how things work. Why people suffer. Reincarnation. These type of things. Plus having good rabbis behind me, that saved me. Why? Because the idea is you want to learn and you want to put into action. Right? You want to be, I am the Energizer Bunny, so you can be like the Energizer Bunny number 2 or 3 or whatever, right? So you're going to be down the line and you're going to say, but I want to put that into real life. So you know how you put it into real life? First you have to learn it. First you have to acquire it. Right? That's what the 6th chapter of Pirkei Avos, 48 ways to acquire Torah. You have to acquire Torah.
Beautiful, beautiful
class. Once you acquire it, it has to go so deep in your heart. It goes from the mind, it goes to the heart. And you have to live it. Now, that's not always easy. That's not always easy because we suffer. And we get beaten down. And we see other people living the life of Riley, and you're suffering like a dog. So you're going to say, but how did you do it? I'm not different than anybody else. I grew up the same way as everybody else. Heck, I got an Ivy League degree. I got an Ivy League degree. So I'm no different. But see, I've been dedicated for the last 20 years, more, of just being a machine to learn, to go through, to keep going and reviewing and doing it and doing the best to live it. I'm not saying I always succeeded. I'm not saying, I'm God's gift to the world by any stretch. What I'm saying is you have to have the ratzon. You have to have the desire. That's the first thing. And then you have to go out and you have to go conquer it. And you have to go out and do it, and you can't be lazy. People would tell me, like, all you do is sit and learn all day. You want to try and do what I do for a couple hours? Ain't gonna last, right? It's too taxing on the brain. It's hard. Not only that, I'm making so much money. Okay, I finished one tractate, I finished another tractate. Look, I know this by heart. I know that by heart. It doesn't make so much money. Whatever. You don't have prestige. You don't have a position. There's a lot of different factors here, going on. Not only that, when I started my call, it was the talk of the town. I brought in guest speakers, great speakers, this, that, and it got taken away in a horrific way. So it's one thing. So part of the test was that it's one thing to say, okay, not everyone has the ability to give. There are brilliant people out there, they can't teach a lick. There are people like that. They just can't teach. They can't give over. Not everyone has that ability. When I started teaching, I also had no ability. God gave it to me. I didn't learn demagoguery or whatever. I heard different people speak, how to use certain things, this, that. And I started off, in a yeshiva, just giving, a few impromptu classes here and there. So, wow, you teach so great. Where'd you learn it? I don't have any experience. This is my experience. I'm like 25 at the time. So I learned over the years, polish things, this, that, but it's only because God gave it to me. Right? Nothing more, nothing less. But you have no idea where all that knowledge went. I gave a class at Or Sameach once in Jerusalem. And they wanted just to try me out, So I gave a class. I prepared something. And in the middle, all of a sudden, some piece of Gemara I hadn't thought of in 5 years. All of a sudden, oh yeah, reminds me of this example. All of a sudden, I quoted this Gemara. Bam, bam, bam. Another idea, another thing. And it went unbelievable. And afterwards... and afterwards, I sat there and I was like, where'd that come from? Hey, who said that? Sounded like me. I mean, I do know how I sound usually. But I said, where'd that come from? And the answer is that the soul doesn't forget. You may not review properly, whatever, but the soul doesn't forget. You just have to know how to recall it. My Rebbe knows how to recall everything in one hand. So okay, I don't have that ability. I'm lucky, if I remember people's names. But, all of a sudden, this falls into place, that falls into place, this, that. I prepared this a few days ago, which we didn't even get to, we're not even going to get to the end here, right? Or close. And whatever, I had an idea of certain things, and whatever. This whole thing, for the last 20 minutes, that's not part of it. A few other things that came up, totally not part of it at all. Why did I bring it up? Because I think people need to hear it, right? But it triggered something in my mind, and no one can see how fast my mind works. So all of a sudden it's this, that, and the other thing. I already am on my third topic, and I say, oh yeah, this is perfect. Boom. Where'd it come from? It's an uncanny ability God gave me. It's not my own. Yeah, it's definitely not my own, but I want to make one thing clear. Now we're totally over time, right? I want to make, one thing clear. If anyone could learn anything from me, and I started from scratch. I started my junior year of college. I went to yeshiva, and we started learning Mishnah. I knew how to read Hebrew, didn't know how to read a Mishnah. Rabbi's like, Coffman, read the Mishnah. I'm like, no. It's like, Coffman, read the Mishnah. Read the Mishnah. All right, tell me what it says. Explain it. What about this? What about that? And people ready to pounce on you. That's how I started to learn. I'm a hotshot. Ivy League school. Ivy League. Didn't know nothing. Nothing. But my background was so weak, and my family background so weak. I said, I'm not going to end up like an Amahart. I'm not going to end up like an idiot. Not knowing anything. Having a 5th grade education. I wanted to learn. Thank God I had money. I was able to sit and learn. And I learned and I learned and I learned. Okay, I still got plenty what to learn. Still got plenty what to grow. Right? But at the end of the day, any Noahide out there. I'm not going to say you're going to be like me. Right? You're going to be able to sit and learn all day, whatever. Right? But I don't want to hear people being lazy. You say, oh, the only Noahide laws, what can I learn? I can set up 10 classes this week. Not a problem. for what people to learn. You want to learn duties of the heart? Can teach you duties of the heart. You want to learn the path of the just? You want to go through Derech Hashem? These are mind-boggling things. You want to learn what the difference between the sin of Adam before and after? It's mind-boggling. What the world looked like. How reincarnation works. Suffering. These are things that get you through life. Oh, Noahid's made up. It's not even in the Torah. It's bushwig. Right? It's nothing. It's all made up. What does a person want? A person want to sit back and sip pina coladas? Or you really want something out of life? Right? It's still, it's never too late. You just have to pick yourself up. You have to want it more than anything else. What does King Solomon say? King Solomon says in Proverbs, you got to desire it like rubies and diamonds, gold and silver. If you desire it like tiddlywinks, that's what it's going to look like. It's not going to look like anything because it's not important. You don't think there's enough to learn? Trust me.
Yeah.
I can have my own station. Maybe we'll build our own station 24/7. Just keep going until I drop. Right? And then people say, boy, I'm bored. You don't have anything else?
Yeah, entertainment chasers. I've developed a distaste for entertainment chasers. I'm all about making it look good if I can, but I'm only doing, and I've studied what I've studied and how to work with computer-generated stuff so I can aid the rabbis, because I see that the Torah is the purpose, is the message, and it's such a joy to have you share even from your heart. You're sharing out from your heart life experience that I know is giving me food for thought, more than food for thought, motivation to do, but also to adjust life in the way that should be adjusted. And we know you've covered a lot today. Did you want to wind it down at all, Rabbi, for today?
I just wanted to mention one thing that, people ask all the time. Learning's hard. It is, right? It makes a person weak. That's what it does. It's straining on the brain, right? But in the end, what do people ask? People ask, that's how we got into this, because you said, okay, what's in it for us? What can we do? Well, the first thing is you have to have the absolute desire, like a meshugana, like a crazy person, and say, you'd grab my virtual senses and say, just teach me. So let's do 3 more classes during the week. Let's find the time. Let's inspire the world. But you have to have it in your heart. You have to want to do it. And you can't be lazy. Right? And the evil inclination is going to say, wow, Rabbi, that was a great speech. That was unbelievable. And they're chopping on potato sticks, right? Or they're eating potato chips, or they're eating, whatever. Okay, now what? What's the person gonna do? Is it just motivation? Or I'm now gonna put up and do something. Right? You can watch all the Torah things in the world. If it doesn't change you, it's not worth spit.
Right. Rabbi, I've been in some situations where no matter how hard I try and run for and push, sometimes it just runs away from me.
Okay, not everything happens at the right time. Not everything's easy, right? Yeah, you have to be persistent. Yeah, 100%. Like, there are plenty of things, I'm stuck not being able to do, okay? Right? I'm doing what I can do. I wish there was a heck of a lot more I could do. I think, 8, 9 classes a week, I think that's pretty good. Trying to keep somewhat of a full schedule, even though I was sick for 2 days, for 3 days, almost pretty much caught up. So, the question is, you have to have it, first of all, you have to have it in your heart. And you have to build it in your heart. But the thing is, most people don't understand what Torah is. This is, we're just scratching the surface. Yeah, Torah's so important. And Torah changes a person. Right? But you don't even know what it is. You don't know how powerful it is. I'm only giving a drop in the bucket. There's no one say, let's start from Genesis. Let's go from the beginning of Genesis. You know how mind-boggling that is? character traits you can learn, in different things and turns over the world. I'm not even getting into Kabbalah or Hasidus. But what it is it burns inside. And it makes you want to do something. And you're right. What is evil inclination going to say now? I'm going to go have a pizza. Evil inclination is going to say, come on, let someone else do it. Let someone else set up a committee. Is the committee going to go so easy? No. Are people want to build this thing and donate tons of money? No. And it's going to be like putting dimes together. That's what it's going to be like. Okay. Why is it like that? Because that was what God wants. If he wants to be so successful, we'll become Reform and Conservative Jews. God will give us all the money and say goodbye. Who wants that? That means we have to struggle for it. That means you have to struggle for it. It means you have to fight. If you're not in for the fight, then just get out. Because it's not worth it. Yeah, you have to be in. You're right, it's hard. God's going to make it easy? Not going to make it easy. I changed my life around. My life's not been easy by any stretch. I was on 2 continents in 3 years. I don't recommend it. With a big family. And my family stayed intact. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem,
but in the end, you have to want to do it. And you can't be lazy. Implement. You can't be lazy. You have to implement. And you have to learn. And you just have to learn. Even, if you're driving on a commute, listen to Torah. Don't listen to the news. News is pretty depressing as it is. Right? You want to maximize whatever time you can learn. You want to live inspired. Living inspired is hard. We're getting beaten down day in and day out. There's no question about it. But still, you have to have somewhat of a spark. You have to want to do it. You have to believe. First of all, you have to believe in the cause. You have to believe it's the right thing. And you have to learn it. You have to envelop it. I just gave a drop of what Chovos Levavos says. Right? Of what the duties of the heart says in Shar B'tachon. And about belief in God. That's a mind-boggling change. To understand, you're going to tell me I should be thankful that person ran the red light, hit me, injured me, injured my car, and I should be thankful. Yeah, you have gratitude, you're alive. God's the one who sent it, but you have to understand the message. You have to understand it all comes from Him. And if He wants it to go, it will. And if He doesn't want it to go, it won't. But that doesn't mean you don't fight for it. Right? So then the man's going to say, but it's hard and it's a struggle. You're right. And the evil inclination is going to say, drop dead. Forget it. It's just too hard. You can't do it. You're just one person. It's hard. I'm not saying not. I'm not saying not. But it starts from within. And once it starts from within, my Rebbe says if you have an epiphany, right? You have this like unbelievable surge of spirituality. He said you grab it for dear life. Because according to Kabbalah, you're giving something now. God's giving you something. He's showing you something. You grab it for dear life and use as much of it as you can. Because it's not going to last very long. That's what you have to do. But that's what life is. You have to take every aspect, of that. So even, a person can't, listen 2 hours a day, listen half an hour. Within 45 minutes, but you have to get it in your mind. You have to change the mentality. Because if you don't change the mentality just in the same rut, same thing, doing this, you don't understand where it all comes from. You don't understand. If you go through Derech Hashem, the way of God, you understand why people go through things. You understand why there's reincarnation. Why there's suffering. Okay, I'm not saying it makes it easier, per se, while you're going through it. But in the end, you have a concept of what's going on. And when you see something, you don't have any concept of what's going on, you say, brings all kinds of doubts. Right? This is what the Chovos Levavos is saying. How does the person lose his service to God? Because he has doubts. That's what the evil inclination does. He brings doubts, and more doubts, and more doubts. That's the power of Amalek. We're not even up to Purim yet. That's the power of Amalek. He brings doubt to the world. He brings cynicism to the world. And that cynicism destroys. And that's what the evil inclination feeds off of. And when you have these thoughts, people say things, you kick it in the head, not literally. Right? You kick it in the head and said, I'm not letting you get me down. I am going to do this, and I'm going to fight, and I don't care how hard, and you can do this. Right? As I guess the last story of Mordechai Pogromansky, the great Telzer Ilui, Telzer rabbinic scholar, died shortly after World War II. He was dying of cancer. Very young, he was in his 40s, dying of cancer. Couldn't move, right? And they wanted to give morphine to ease the pain. Now, he was blind at this point, could barely move. So, now you're talking about a great individual. What happened was he picked himself up on his bed, used all his strength, pointed at God and said, come on, give me all the pain. You give me all the pain right now because I'm coming straight to you to Gan Eden. Pure. I want you to purify my body. I want you to destroy it. You do whatever you want because I'm going to come to you. Now all my sins are taken care of. Whatever sins I had, I'm coming straight to you. Isn't that the right mentality? That is the right Torah mentality. Is that where we're holding? Hell no. He was on a totally different level. But that's the right idea. The idea being that whatever happens, if we suffer, we should be whistling Dixie. I don't even know how to whistle Dixie. But whatever, you whistle Dixie because you're ecstatic. It's saving me from future suffering later. Even if it's hard to go through. You say it's all good because it's taking the toll. It's going to take the toll for me later.
Yeah, I think that is something that we all need to grasp and grip. The complete and utter sovereignty of Hashem over every possible situation. And we're so frail in some respects that we tend to buckle over a broken fingernail. And yet there are such giants who go through such
right, because that's why we call this generation the Teflon generation. That's it. Just like, oh, the light bulb doesn't work. What am I going to do? What's going to be?
Call up Google, yeah.
Go to Rabbi Dr. Google. How do I change my light bulb?
It's, I think, especially at my age, I've learned, if I can't teach it to others, at this stage in my life, I'll never be able to do it. And so I say, hey, just do it. And it's great to be able to share with people the beauty of Torah, but it's even more a joy to me to learn it from a rabbi such as yourself, one who has spent, like you said, those hours and hours in study. But what I can take away from today, myself personally, is I probably should be spending more time in prayer. I think I need to. And I'm sure there's a lot of other lessons that are in there. And I'm sure you'll be able to get, maybe if we go forward, you'll be able to get into more chesed, more deeds of kindness as we go forward. And I just hope that people learn.
I only hit the first part of the Mishnah, so I got a little bit carried away. But whatever, we'll definitely cover ground. Right, we're definitely going to, cover the ground. But this is the three things that the world stands on. You can't just do it in 2 minutes, right?
Exactly.
So whatever, we'll cover it. Mirz Hashem will cover it. But, I always try and show people one last thing that, people always want to dive into mysticism and Kabbalah and all this. There's so many deep things within Torah itself. You don't even need it. You don't even need it. All you need is a little bit of the Energizer Bunny and give you like some snippets. That's enough, right? That should be good. At least you're going to say, wow, he's only coming back in a week.
That's right.
It should last at least a couple of days. I hope an hour. I hope 20 minutes.
Well, we're so thankful that you've taken that time. I mean, I really hope that people grip and grasp. They don't need to be getting into the mysticism when there's more than a lifetime of Musar. There's more than a lifetime of ethics that we can glean. And we're so thankful that you are sharing it with us. And so, folks, we're gonna check out for now. We've been to over 90 minutes, and we want to thank you all, and we wish you all a wonderful 2020. And please, you guys, you can check out Rabbi Coffman on his website or his YouTube page. His website's orthodoxconversion.com. Don't be afraid to stand up and support him. I mean, he's doing plenty of work, and he's really working for this potential for this center north of Jerusalem that could be a hotbed for visiting B'nai Noach in the future. And it's a wonderful vision that I think, is worthy of support. And I just hope that we can continue to grow B'nai Noach here in the West, in North America, and the entire globe. And it's glad to see we still get our friends like Barbara coming in regularly from Germany, plus many others from all over. We're thankful for you all. So we'll post our next meeting. We tentatively aim for Wednesdays, but we're moving at the rabbi's schedule. So until then, folks, have a wonderful 2020.